Hello, my name is Ivana Farrar, and my presentation is on annotating and teaching annotation. Why this lesson? This lesson is necessary because annotating helps the reader to get a better understanding of what they are reading. This skill is especially important in the upper grade levels when texts become more dense and complex. For this presentation, you will need a pen or a pencil, your writer's notebook, headphones, and excerpts that are in the link on Google Docs. First, we will ask our students, what is annotating and what is annotation? Annotating is making meaningful notes while reading a text. How do you annotate? I'm sure that if you ask any of your students or a few of my students, you would find out that a lot of students think that annotating is simply just highlighting. One thing that I've learned throughout this past school year is that many of our students will just highlight and think that that was it, and we would discuss what exactly they were highlighting, and they didn't have a clue what they were highlighting because there were no notes associated with the highlighting. So the actual answer to how do you annotate is highlighting while making notes. So I always tell my students that they have to highlight and make a note of something. So they will either highlight and define words they don't know. They will highlight and make connections to other texts, make connections to life experiences, comment on things that they want to remember, or just make as many notes as possible. In my class, we go through two different types of annotating. So one way that I teach my students to annotate is just kind of like an annotation free-for-all. They just go through and they ask questions, they make comments, any notes, any concerns that they have, they'll summarize, and just anything that they feel necessary to make note of while they're reading. A more structured way that I teach annotation is annotating with a purpose. So depending on what the lesson is or what we are reading and what I need my students to look for, I have them look for things such as rhetorical devices. They'll summarize as they read. They'll look for the theme, or they'll look for whatever conflict that the characters are going through. So for this presentation, I need you guys to draw the following chart that I have drawn out for you, and I want you to draw this chart 3 times for the activities that we'll be doing. You can pause the video here and then play the video when you're done. So this first excerpt is from a story called Their Eyes Were Watching God. So for this section, I want you guys to just take 5 to 8 seconds to skim through this text. When you're done skimming, I want you to write under the skim section of your chart what you think the paragraph is about. And you can pause the video until you're done and go to the next slide. For this section, I want you to read the same text. It is the same text, but now what you're doing is you are going to read through. You're not going to make any mental notes. You're not going to stop. You're just going to read the text straight through. It should take you about 30 to 40 seconds to read through this text. And when you're done, go ahead and go to the next slide. Now you're going to write under the read section of your chart and write down how your knowledge has changed from when you skim the text, if there has been a change. If not, you can write that it stayed the same. And you can pause the video and play it when you're ready to go to the next slide. So now, under the reading while annotating section, you guys are going to read with a specific purpose and annotate with a specific purpose. Those are the same text. You're going to read through the text and take as long as you need, and you're going to look for the rhetorical devices such as similes and metaphors. Now, under the reading while annotating section, I want you to write what meaning you've gained from the text now that you have read and annotated. Go ahead and pause the video and continue when you're done. This piece of text is from The Great Gatsby, so we're going to do the same thing. You should be on your second chart. We're going to do the same thing, and you're going to skim through this text. Just take a couple seconds and just skim through the text. Now that you've skimmed through the text, I want you to write under the skim section what you think the paragraph is about. Go ahead and pause the video and play it when you're ready to go to the next slide. Now, this is the same text. You're going to read through the text without stopping, without making any mental notes if possible, and read through and go to the next slide when you're ready. Now, under the read section, you are going to write what information you've gained from reading the text and if it's changed from when you skim through the text. Go ahead and pause the video and continue when you're done writing. So for this annotation, for this specific text, you guys are going to summarize. So you're going to read through the same text again from Great Gatsby, and you're going to summarize every sentence or every couple sentences to gain a better understanding of the text. So for this text in particular, I would choose to give this one to my students as a summarization example, because I know that this text is very dense and a lot of them get discouraged from reading the story because the very first page is full of a lot of colorful language, and it can be very discouraging for students who have a hard time breaking down text. So go through and read through this text and annotate and summarize as you go through the text, and pause the video here and go to the next section when you're done. Now, under the reading while annotating section, for this text, just go ahead and write what meaning you got from the text now that you've summarized, and if you've gained any new understanding from the text. Go ahead and pause the video and go to the next slide when you're ready. So for this story, this is The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I want you guys to do the same thing as we did with the other two texts and just skim through the text and go to the next slide when you are done. Same thing, you're going to write what information that you think the text is about based off of you skimming through the text. Go ahead and pause the video and go to the next slide when you are ready. Now you're going to read through the text. Don't stop. Don't make any mental notes if possible. Read straight through and go to the next slide when you are ready. Now, under the read section, write what you think you know about the text now that you have read it, and if it's changed from you skimming through the text. Pause the video and continue when you're ready. All right, so for this section of reading while annotating, based off of the title of our story, The Bluest Eye, I want you to annotate for the theme and what you think the theme of the story is. So you're just going to read, take as much time as you need, read carefully through the text, underline or highlight or comment different parts of the story that you think has to do with the theme of the story. Go ahead and pause the video and continue to the next slide when you're ready. Now, under the reading while annotating section, write what meaning you have from the text now that you've taken your time to point out the theme to understand the text. That is it. Thank you. Please post a picture of one of your charts that we have from either The Bluest Eye, Their Eyes Were Watching God, or The Great Gatsby. Post it on MeWe. And thank you for listening to my presentation.